first panelist for today is Mr. Jasvipul Chawla. He is innovation lead at Renew. He has his experience in multiple industries: automotive, manufacturing, data analytics, etc., etc. And he is renewable power. In that section, he is one of the person who have you have to also go for any problems. He basically looks out in the areas of assessing a problem, making sure that they are on top notch before they are released into the system. And over to you, Jaspulji.
Thanks, Suraj. Can I present my screen here?
Yes, it's visible.
Thanks a lot. Is this visible? So, hello everyone. I'm Jasvipul Chawla and I'm from Renewable. I'll give a brief introduction of my career path till now. He has already summed up that I have worked in a lot of industries. You can see I started with an engineering degree way back in 2006. I've worked in data analytics, then robotics and manufacturing. Then I've done my PhD in green energy. This is where my green energy career actually starts. Then I have worked a bit in a design company, which was designing wind turbines in India. Then I've made a move to automotive also, and then again back to green energy at Renew. So one of the things I want to emphasize here, as Ipsita also mentions, is that you have to look at generalist and then at the niche. So if you're looking at green jobs, you have to first start with basics. Like I started with basic mechanical engineering and gravitated towards green energy. And also it's not difficult to switch sectors. If your basics are strong, you can contribute to any sector. So right at the start of your career, you should not be very, very specific. You should try to learn as much as you can. The photographs here, this is me on top of a wind turbine. You can see how small the trees are. And then the bottom left here, it's a wind tunnel. This is where I did my research for my PhD. I was looking at airfoils and how they behave in different conditions. Currently, I work at Renew Power. Renew Power is India's largest clean energy generator. We have very, very large projects and across 114 sites. We are present across 9 states in India. And we have almost 10 gigawatts of capacity. What this means is that we produce 1% of India's electricity. And we also offset 0.5% of India's carbon dioxide emissions. And that is huge. And we've started 10 years ago. We have reached this scale and we have huge plans for the future. And we're hoping that these numbers will be much, much larger, the bottom two ones. And how do we do this? So we have solar farms and wind farms. So renewable energy is the form of energy which is derived from sources which can be replenished, and not replenished in a day or two, but replenished in a human lifespan. So let's say 30, 40, 50, 60 years, you can replenish that. So if you look at coal or oil and all, these things are not renewable energies. Of course, they have fossil fuels which create a lot of carbon dioxide, but renewable energy would be solar, wind. Wind can be turned around within 1 year. Like it blows daily, and every year you have similar patterns. You can look at hydropower. Hydropower is also replenished annually, unless you're exploiting too much and changing the climate quite a lot. That your whole cycle changes. Even biomass is renewable energy, even though that may or may not be carbon neutral, but it is a form of renewable energy. My company, Renew Power, is majorly invested in these solar and wind plants. One of the things about renewable energy is that it is not concentrated. So if you take a lump of coal, or if you have a liter of petrol, it has a lot of energy contained in it. But if you look at sunlight, or if you look at wind, there's very, very less energy concentrated in it. So what you have to do is you have to go big. In fact, you have to go huge. And the sizes of all of these assets that we have are humongous. So for an example, you know how big a Scorpio SUV is? If you put it in context in front of a turbine, you can see the scale. This is just, small, minuscule in front of a wind turbine. And this is the same turbine that my photograph was at the top of. And this is just a medium-sized turbine. This is not one of the largest turbines in the world. It's not even the largest ones in India. So you can imagine, to extract power out of wind, the amount of engineering that goes into it. We'll stop here for a short poll. The question: how much do you think a wind turbine would weigh? Can you get the poll up, please? Yeah. So does it weigh as much as the largest animal known to man, the blue whale, or is it medium-sized whale, that is humpback whale, or as big as a great white shark? A blue whale, mind you, is 200 tons. Humpback whale is 30 tons, and a great white shark is almost a ton.
We have people voting for humpback whale the most.
Okay. Yeah, let's wait for a bit and let's see what the scales are.
In the meantime, let me add about the solar grid our country is leading. India and France is currently leading one sun, one world, one grid. That's the energy trading platform, which you should be aware about, because that's something where it will be a major green spaces opening in upcoming India. So please do read about that. One sun, one world, one grid.
Do we have the poll results now?
Yes, and yeah, the results are there.
Okay, so we've got almost 50% saying it's going to be as big as a humpback whale, around 35% saying it's as huge as a blue whale, around 70% saying it's like a great white shark. The answer, however, is it's bigger than a blue whale. This turbine that I showed earlier, 1.7 megawatt, this is almost 200 250 tons, which is bigger than a blue whale. And the ones that we have right now in India are 250 to 300 tons. So imagine all of that mass and also rotating at a height which is as big as an Eiffel Tower, and all of that mass going around. So that's quite a lot of complication in engineering. How did we get here? So if we look at the timeline of, at least for wind turbines, we can start towards the turn of the last century, where we had really small wind turbines. These are the ones you see in tourist pamphlets for Amsterdam or something. But around 1990s is when the actual large scale research started, and we started developing mathematical models, understanding aerodynamics, trying to figure out how the turbine should be and how we should build them to extract maximum energy out of them. One of the things was that the best mathematical model is a three-bladed turbine. Other things were that we understood aerodynamics better, we understood materials better, we understood forces better, and we have been going bigger and bigger and bigger since. If you look now, we are at around 7 to 8 megawatt turbines, which are commonplace, and in 2025 we'll have turbines as large as 15 megawatt. So this has been possible because of a lot of R&D that has gone into wind energy over the past few years. And the claim is that if we keep doing this kind of R&D for the next few decades, we should be able to replace the dirty energy sources with clean energy sources. If you look at world's dependence upon different sources of energy, you can see that earlier the mainstay was coal, gas, and oil. These are all very fairly dirty sources of energy, but it has been steadily dropping. We are here around 2020, where wind and solar have started making a dent. But the kind of research that we do and kind of scale that we reach in renewable energy will push it further, and probably by 2050 we'll have more than half of the energy for the world coming from clean sources.
Jasvipul ji, sorry to interrupt, but we have a question from Sanika, a participant. She's asking, we can use solar panels, but as years pass by, won't it cost a lot? The cost and the energy balance of the solar panels. So if you could assess that.
So the thing is, there's something called as levelized cost of energy. Each of the sources, wind, solar, coal, will have a energy cost associated to it. As of today, wind and solar are lower than coal in energy costs. That is why the bids that you see in India right now, last year we even had less than 2 rupees per kilowatt hour bid coming in from NTPC. So in the past few years, wind and solar have beaten down on coal, and this is without subsidies. Like 20 years ago, we used to have a lot of subsidies for renewable energy. And that's how you encourage people to get into this kind of a risky business. Once the scales are set, sorry?
Sorry, your voice was a little breaking, sorry.
Okay, so I was saying that there were a lot of subsidies, there was a lot of encouragement given by the government for renewable energy, which has now been drawn because renewable energy is mature enough now to take coal and oil head on. We are cheaper than coal without subsidies now. There are, of course, challenges for the future, but still, we are much cheaper now. And that's why we believe that there'll be a huge uptake of renewable energy in the coming future.
Just before we go ahead, one last from my end, what are the other alternatives than metal? Because metal is also kind of a burden on while we mine it out and while we have removing it out from the earth core, it's going to cause some pollution or some damage. So is there any alternative to metal while being in this green space?
Well, see, metal is something you can't avoid. If you look at wind turbines, a lot. I'll go about recycling. What are the materials that you can recycle? Because if you can have a cyclic economy, then most of your problems are sorted out. So in a wind turbine, the major mass comes from a turbine, which is all steel. The tower, which is all steel. Then we have nacelle and the blades, which are not recyclable right now, which are also huge. They're made of glass fibers. Then we have generators and copper cables, and we have gearboxes, which are all precious metals, which can all be recycled and can be recycled back into the wind energy industry itself. So if we can figure out a way, which we are trying to do, of using wind turbine blades as structural elements at some other place, you reduce the environmental impact by quite a lot. Any activity that you do, even agriculture, will have a certain impact on the environment. So you can't avoid it completely. What you can do is you have to reduce as much as you can. So that's about the wind turbines. About solar panels, the main element there is silicon. And silicon is very, very, very difficult to recycle. In fact, we've begun research like recently at one of our premier institute partners in India, where we're trying to recycle the components of a solar panel. That's, you have silver there, you have aluminum in there, you have a lot of silicon in there. And we're trying to figure out where all can we use it. If not in solar industry, can we use it in other industries? So we're trying to reduce the environmental impact of all the materials that we use in our technologies.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's time for another question. Where do you think India ranks in total renewable energy generation around the world? Are we in the top 5? Are we in 5 to 10 countries? Are we lagging behind? We're not even in the top 10. Mind you that we are the second most populous country in the world. So where should we be is one of the things, and where we are may or may not matter.
And do also consider that India is a great solar belt region. It has the major scope for solar field. That's a pretty big thing before you answer.
So tropics, between the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn, we have lots and lots of sunshine. If we go further north, you might have studied about trade winds. There are a lot of winds between the Arctic and Antarctic Circle and the tropics. So wind is very, very well suited in those regions, and solar is very well suited here. But every country has a mix of both assets. And that's the way to go, because solar and wind are complementary. Solar energy is there during the daytime. Wind is there during mornings and evenings. So you can combine both and have a smoother delivery of power. Do we have answers here?
Yes.
Okay. So again, a little less than half the people believe we are in 5 to 10, 6 to 10 rank in the world. 28% believe we are in the top 5, and 28%, almost 27% believe we are less than 10th in the rank. I'll come to what the actual situation is for India. A minute for water. So if we look at total energy generation, we are the second largest populous country in the world. So we typically should be second largest, but we are third largest in terms of total energy generation. In renewable energy generation, we have a very respectful 4th place. But if we look at, so this was the question that I was asking, where do we rank in total energy generation, renewable energy generation? But if we look at renewable energy as a percentage of total, we are lagging behind, somewhere around 20th largest. We are trying to change it. We have huge goals for the future. Our government has set a target of 475 gigawatts of power through renewable energy by 2030. Right now, we are at 100 gigawatt level. So we are trying to quadruple it within the next 8 years or so. So we will change this landscape for sure. But as of now, we are fourth largest in the world in terms of renewable energy generation. So this switch to renewable energy that we are trying to do, that our government is forcing, will require lots and lots of investment. And for India, it is believed that we'll need $1.6 trillion of investment. Of course, this investment will lead to a lot of job creations, and there will be millions and millions of jobs created around the world and also in India. These jobs will mostly be in construction and installation because there'll be a lot of workers required to actually put up these panels, these assets. And if you look at jobs by occupational requirements, there will be workers, and then there'll be a lot of experts that are needed who can design these, who can understand how to manage, and there will be even lots of requirements for R&D people. And yes, of course, there'll be a lot of requirement for business, the marketing, the MBAs, and a lot of administration people. If you look at the mix of the technologies, there'll be geothermal, wind, offshore and onshore, solar, and photovoltaic. The solar also is split into two parts. Another thing that's coming up is battery storage, energy storage through battery or hydrogen. That's also another hot area. Since I'm from engineering R&D background, these are the kind of jobs you can expect in the engineering R&D sector. There'll be wind, solar, energy storage, and energy management as the main heads, in which you'll have all possible engineerings covered. You'll have aerodynamics, you'll have material sciences, you'll have electronics, you'll have hydrogen, the chemistries, you'll have a lot about coding and a lot about optimization. So almost all engineering streams can contribute to green energy. It's not that they're only engineering jobs in companies like mine. Rather, engineering jobs are much less than the rest of the jobs. So the main part company like mine does is to raise money and set up the assets. So the main core of my company are the business functions. How do you raise money? How do you get equity money? How do you get debt? And how do you execute the projects? There's a lot of finance and accounting jobs there. Then, of course, since we're setting up such large assets, you have to do a lot of project execution, you have to do a lot of O&M. Then there are legal requirements. Then there are a lot of regulatory requirements. You have to talk a lot to the government. You have to figure out what policies are coming next or what policies should be there. So I would say that almost every field gets represented in green jobs. You don't have to stick to engineering or sciences. But you can make a shift from any job currently to green jobs, and there are opportunities for everyone. That's it from me now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasvipul ji. But before we wind up your session, I have two more questions. First of all, I would like to mention that metal question was from Andrila ji, and I just forgot her name while speaking, and really sorry for that. And there is a question from Shaheen, which says, I am an ECE student, electronics and communication engineering student, and what are the green jobs available for me? So you did show the list of what space we can go, but if you can just please answer this again.
So for R&D, there's a lot of scope here in embedded hardware. This embedded hardware for ECE students will directly go into designing better solar panels. That means you increase the efficiency of solar generation. There's a lot of electronics and communications happening for wind turbines. You have to make sure the generators are controlled properly. They are they are producing energy optimally. There's a lot of communication also happening. There's a lot of data being taken from each and every solar module. It's analyzed and put into our central servers. There's a lot of data analytics happening. Then there's a lot of scope in battery storage. So for battery storage, if you are given a chemistry, you have to make a workable asset out of it. So there's a lot of electronics that goes into making batteries more efficient. And of course, there's a lot of scope for transmission of energy. You have to take energy from the generation sources and distribute it all over India.
Shaheen, I guess that answers your questions. Okay. Thank you, Jasvipul ji, for that amazing insight on how the careers can be delineated after any kind of course which we are currently going on. Thank you.